We are now live.
Thank you. So we will now move to reports. Okay, business items. We have the reports there, board chair reports. Any questions or comments? Okay, I see none. All right, we'll go to the superintendent's report. And as usual, the yellow highlights what is part of our work for the superintendent, which is on his work plan. So any questions or comments? Okay, Trustee Tagwood, I see your hands up.
Yes, I just had a question about the, a couple of questions about the 0.5 literacy and numeracy coach. My question for that is this coach for all 12 of our schools? Are they going to be working with each school, this person? Could you just explain a bit as to how that's working? This is for grade 2 and 3, is that correct?
Yeah, and in the new year, it'll be grade 1 as well. So that 0.5 is just for our division. And I'll maybe get Lori, or sorry, Assistant Superintendent Cardinal, maybe to talk a little bit about what that person is doing.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So we hired this individual as a result of the literacy and numeracy grant from Alberta Education. And so in consultation with administrators, we decided to put a small portion of the funds away so that we could have somebody to coordinate the grant and coordinate the interventions as well. And so essentially this person is working with 8 schools from grades 1 to 3. She just started about 2 weeks ago and until the end of June in the area of literacy and numeracy. So she'll be doing things, well, the first order of business was to search out a math intervention that relates to the Alberta curriculum and to ensure that there was buy-in from all of the schools. And so they've just decided on one after a period of consultation as well. She will be providing professional development in regards to that intervention. Our literacy has already been well in place for a number of years, with Acadience being that intervention, or excuse me, assessment tool. And LLI is another one that, so I forget what that stands for, level learning interventions, I believe. And she will also be working with that, with teachers as well, to provide professional development in that area. So this is basically the idea is to take these interventions. We see this as a wonderful opportunity to provide some professional development, some supports for literacy and numeracy, and to create some consistency between our schools into how this is carried out. So I hope that answers your question. Is there anything else?
I also just was curious. So this is on a per student basis, except for the 0.5 maybe. Is it going to provide extra time with EAs? Is that some of so it's going for professional development, mainly for EAs to have extra time for one-on-one?
No, not typically educational. No, it will be for mostly for teachers, in some cases educational assistants that will support the teachers. But yes, those have already been hired, those people, or their time has increased because typically a lot of them were already in the schools.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that answered the question about that. Is there anything else, Superintendent?
Well, I was just going to say, like, we received about 285,000. So about 50,000, well, not even, about 40,000 was spent on this position. The other money was allocated to the schools. They had to come up with a plan on how they would provide interventions at their local school. This person is coordinating that whole effort for the division.
Okay, that explains how it's going together. Thank you. I also had another note about the Treaty 6 flags and the Métis flags. I think that's great that they've been distributed to the schools, and I look forward to going in and seeing these. Hopefully in the new year we can do that. And my other question is about the rapid tests. When hearing today that rapid tests are going to be provided to individuals, do you think this is going to affect the number of rapid tests that are allowed for our teachers who choose to do rapid tests twice a week? I just wonder if it's going to be making any difference, the numbers that are allowed.
Well, we have in Assistant Superintendent Malloy's office our allotment of rapid tests. So they're there until the end of March. We're in a good place.
That we probably will have extra by the time this is finished at the end of March. Is that because they expire at the end of March?
It's a government program that has already been extended once, maybe twice. But yeah, it's been extended to the end of March.
Okay,
They do have due dates on them as well. So
that's what I thought. And they also are saying that anyone can now go into pharmacies and get 5 per person. So I just wondered if that would extend the number that we have. Thank you.
Thank you. I see Trustee Miller's hand is up. Go ahead.
Excuse me. Thank you, Chair. I have 2 questions. So under number 5, the 4th bullet, in regards to assessment, the second part of the statement is the goal is to increase parental engagement. In what way or what is the goal in that, to engage the parents about the assessment process or through the assessment process? Just some clarity around how the parental engagement piece is working in regards to assessments.
I'll have Assistant Superintendent Cardinal speak to that.
Okay, thank you for your question. So in regards to engaging parents with assessment, part of our integration of PowerSchool has been moving towards live reporting. So parents, as we move towards live reporting over this year, parents should be able to log into PowerSchool and see what's happening with students and their grades. And also they would be able to see report cards online or interim reports as well. So we're trying to engage parents into more of an interactive process where they can see what's happening in, I guess, in live time, I guess. That's what that's referring to.
Okay. Can I ask a clarity question on that?
Absolutely.
Mr. Chair? Okay.
Go ahead.
So it says and build consistent assessment practices. So is that, I guess I'm reading it wrong, that it's not the assessment actually in school, it's more through the interaction of PowerSchool.
Well, and so it's hard to explain, but so when you're looking at preparing to input your information into PowerSchool, a lot of that is what is happening behind the scenes. It's not like you just sit down as a teacher one day and just input your information, right? You do have to begin with the end in mind with assessment. And so this, our director of curriculum has been really working on this with teachers and looking at, okay, what does the curriculum, what are the outcomes? How are you assessing? How are you getting there? And beginning with that end in mind, so that when it comes to putting that information into PowerSchool, that there is good data that is inputted. The other piece of that is with the levels of achievement. There's been a lot of work with levels of achievement. In fact, there's one meeting today going on all day and looking at what do those levels of achievement mean, and how can we find some consistency within that practice when you're assigning those levels of achievement? Because again, though a percentage may seem more precise to a parent, really what we're looking for is growth towards mastery in the end. So that's what we're looking for. So we're just working with teachers on an ongoing basis, and it is a process throughout this year that we have a plan for.
Okay, thank you. My second question is under number 6, bullet number 2. It talks about a guide to relationships and learning with the Indigenous peoples of Alberta. Is that a document or an item that can be shared with trustees, or is it a program? How can we learn more about that?
So that was a session at the conference, the CAS conference. And I believe that was Assistant Superintendent Malloy that attended that, if I'm correct. Do you want to maybe just speak to that, please?
Yeah, I can speak to that. So CAS has a great deal of resources on this. And so it is a guide through the CAS website and resources that you can get this information on. So I can take a look at sharing on that if that's something that you'd be interested in looking at. It's a fantastic resource that dives way deeper than just what was listed there. But that's a start of what we received some professional development on.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
Thank you. And my question is that open? Is that a free resource on their site?
I'm not sure if it's behind
You're
the membership
Okay.
wall or not. That's a good question.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. All right. I see no further hands up. We will move to Secretary Treasurer Larka.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to highlight a couple of things. One we've already talked about. The last little bit has been on December 1st, the province indicated that they would want projections for enrollments for the 22-23 school year for January 5th, which is a midweek Wednesday. And I know there's been some advocacy by CAS in terms of at least finishing out that week. Every working day counts in terms of being able to have a consultation process with our administrators and feel that we're comfortable with the data that we're submitting. As was previously discussed, we're looking at upgrading and being much more conservative in terms of our enrollment. COVID has kind of reset our historical kind of trends that we've relied on in the past when looking at enrollment. So we're taking a very, very skeptical and conservative perspective on those enrollments. And we've kind of done our first initial accelerated process is what I'd call it, recognizing that our schools for the most part are shutting down at the end of this week. And so the timelines might seem like just over a month, but in terms of our school operational days, it's really, we had about 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks. The other thing I'd like to highlight from my report is under the transportation management. We did have one of our contractors reach out to us with regards to support because of the high cost of insurance for busing. And within the transportation budget, we are supporting their insurance costs through a surcharge, looking at the incremental amount that they would have paid actually almost 2 years ago under the contract bus operators insurance program through Lloyd SAD, and what their current rates are. So we are supporting contractors as they reach out to us in that regard. So those are the two items that I wanted to highlight at this point. The other thing that's not in my report that's kind of evolving is that one of our contractors has indicated that they've had significant difficulty in finding bus drivers and has indicated that they wish to give notice, 60 days notice to terminate their contract. We've reached out to them and Transportation Services is looking to see if we can do a bit of a social media advertising campaign with our bus contractors in the Drayton Valley area. That's where we're talking about. See if we can find some people that are willing to look at bus as a bus driving as an option for work, and try and support those contractors that are having trouble recruiting through the channels that we have available to us as a school division. But at this point, we also have our transportation coordinator looking at other options if we finalize this termination at the bid point in February is when the termination would be effective.
Thank you, Mr. Larka. I see Trustee Tagwood's hand up.
I was just going to say, I'm very glad we're going to be supporting that bus contractor that has faced horrible raise in costs due to insurance. My other question, of course, is about Father Lacombe. Are we still on time and is everything going good there?
Well, the question is always about time. And so we're being still assured that we're still meeting a July handover date.
Okay.
But it's been interesting as they've worked through supply chain issues. But where possible, the contractor has tried to make sure that where there's been a lag with getting supplies on site, once they're on site, that they're fulfilled and the work is then completed as quickly as possible. So we continue to ensure that and request updates to the schedule in the event that timeline for the mid-July handover, so that the staff and the students, or the staff, can get into the school and set up the new school for the following school year in September, start up in the new building.
Thank you. Also, because it's going to be this beautiful, wonderful new building, maybe those 11,000 students are going to be enrolling in our school. Maybe not 11,000, but I think I'm thinking it will definitely increase. I know some students have gone because the parents didn't want their kids going while all that construction was on. So it might change, but are we able to absorb those extra students? I know we're being conservative in our enrollment numbers, so it might be more, but we're able to absorb that. Is that correct?
You know, our indication from our enrollment projections is that we would absorb additional students, but we've certainly had discussions with the administration there on what I guess we've called internally a new school effect might look like. But again, I think until we can confirm within the community that that the contractor is able to meet their delivery dates, I think it's a little hard, even at this time. We're 7 months out, to kind of say what exactly that might look like. So again, we've kind of tried to rein in our optimism of what the possibilities might exist with a new Father Lacombe school.
Okay, I'll try to rein it in.
If we get more,
Thank you.
it's great, and it will show up in our funding for future years. But it's better. It's better than looking at a clawback in that future year.
Yes, I agree. Thank you.
Yeah, it would be nice to see all 11,000 showed up in Lacombe. Mr. Latka, quick question. How much of a surcharge are we looking at? Do you have an idea?
Yeah, approximately $8 a day.
$8 a day. Okay.
Per bus,
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Okay, per bus. Okay, thank you. Right, I see Trustee De La Cerrone's hands up. Go ahead.
Thank you. I was just wondering, Ed, I was just curious, for the prospective bus drivers, for the proper licensing and training, that would all be paid for by the district rather than the individual themselves?
There hasn't been any discussion with a contract like that. We're just trying to use our channels of communication to see if there's people that are untapped that maybe haven't looked at working as a bus driver. I know I've worked in other jurisdictions where parents have been approached by transportation services in terms of part of their recruiting process. As they've contacted transportation, transportation has reached out to them and said, well, would you be interested in being a bus driver? So we're trying to use social media to help augment what the contractor might be using for recruitment, just to see within our community that we have access to, there might be people that would be willing to consider that and help be a service to our students.
Thank you. There are no further questions. We'll go into risk management discussion. I believe this was something Trustee Miller did bring up a month ago. So, Trustee Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So going through the structure of the board's committees, I see that we have a finance committee, and then separate from that, we have an audit committee / risk management committee. According to the Education Act, boards need to have an audit committee where members of the public are on that committee for obvious reasons and transparency. But to hold that audit committee as one in the same as the risk management committee doesn't necessarily make sense to me. We had talked about it in the finance committee that possibly the audit committee, I brought forward an idea to have the audit committee as a subcommittee of the finance committee and enact that subcommittee only when it is time to prepare and perform and review an audit. Therefore, the members of the public would serve that purpose on the audit committee without being on any internal committees in any other area. At the finance committee, we asked the secretary treasurer to do a little bit of research as to what other boards are doing and where they're holding the audit committee and what the risk management committee is doing, because I think there's room for growth in there. So I guess just an update, a discussion around this, what makes sense for our board, making sure that it makes sense for and to be effective to get the job done in what we need to do moving forward.
Okay. Thank you. So this will be the information, and a lot of that work, like Mr. Latka will look into, and I was going to ask War, going to be contacting some of my colleagues, board chairs, and then in the new year we'll see how we align things. So for now, will be just the heads up and information, and then start thinking about the way we are perceiving things to unfold in the new year. Should we look at it, like she said, from that perspective of aligning things appropriately or properly? Okay, if there are no any other question? Trustee Tagood, I see your answer.
I just wanted to clarify. So you're saying this will be put on the agenda in January, but first it will go to the finance committee?
No.
With the report.
Sorry.
I'm just not clear as to what.
Let me clarify. We have some work to do, and then finance will look at it, and then we'll come back with something in the new year.
So it will go to finance first and then come back to the board.
To the board, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Bouchard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So policy committee is reviewing policy 8 on January 3rd. Would we be wise to defer the review of that policy until we get further direction from the board?
Yes, I will say, right, because we want to look at it with research coming back from Stelaka and myself, and then if there will be any policy changes to it, then we will give policy committee the heads up. Okay. Right. Thank you. We will, okay. So it's noon. So I would like us to take our lunch break here, and we're taking the full hour. So if you are, we will come back and begin from 7:5. So that's a very good natural break here. Come back and talk more about insurance. Okay. So we will resume at 1.